I've got a 10-2 wire coming out from the house panel and running in conduit and stubbed up here in the wall of the barn. I'm going to put a sub panel in here, an outlet, 2 switches here, and then I'm going to run conduit up into the loft area and then against the wall on the back of the loft. Across, I'm going to install 2 LED ceiling lights, and then I'm going to come around and come down and install another outlet over here. I'm going to keep it up high, keep it away from the animals, and put it all in conduit. Here's how I do it. When I built this barn, I put my studs 16 inches on center. This is a balloon wall. Got 2x6 treated boards, and then I put some jack studs, some 2x4s in between there and there, so I could build this loft to store hay. Well, it just so happens that now that's 11¼ inches wide, and the box for the panel, the 125 amp sub panel box that I got, is 11⅛ inches wide, so it's perfect. The top of my panel in the house is 83 inches, so I'm just going to stick with that out here in the barn. I'm just mounting that temporarily because I've got to build my conduit, tie into that pipe there, and run it up to the panel. The piece of conduit that the wire's in is about 3 inches from the inside of that stud to the inside of that. So I want to run my conduit straight up, and I'm going to knock out this tab here, and these just pop out, and I'll break that off. So I'll run my conduit up to there, and I'm going to run this piece up through there and put a nut on there, and that'll tie my conduit in down there. And then I'm going to knock out this tab here, drill a hole through these 2 studs, and put a 3-gang box in over here, and drill a hole in the side of the box, and I can bring 1 or 2 wires from the breaker panel into there. I'll have an outlet over here, and then a switch here, and a switch in the middle. And then I can run my conduit off the top, drill a hole, and go up and feed the lights and the outlet on the other side from there. And we've got spectators wondering what's going on. Perfect. We'll just tuck these in here temporarily until we're ready to wire it up. Okay, I've got the side drilled out of this, so I can bring my line from the panel, hot line, into the 3-gang box. And here's where I'm going to bring the wire through. This is the wire coming from the main panel. This is the sub panel. So there's no power here. Got a piece of 14-2 wire. I'm going with a 15 amp breaker. Just feed that through. Myself 6 inches. And I'm going to strip this wire. I'm going to be careful to go right in the middle where that copper wire is, so you don't damage any of the other wires. You slide this off. If you're doing a sub panel, you want to make sure the power's off. Got my wire going to power the outlet and 2 switches. And then I've got my 10-2 wire that's coming from the main panel. There's no bonding screw in this, and I went and got a ground bar, neutral bars here. Power will come into there, and I got my ground bar. Here's 2 holes along the bottom. There actually was 1 hole there, and I drilled that one so I can mount the ground bar. And I'll put that one in. Alright, ground bar, neutral bar, and the 2 hot legs. I'm only going to use 1 leg because I only ran 10-2 wire. If I had 10-3 wire, then I could run both, but I only need 120 or 110 out here. So I'm just going to hook up to 1. I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom of the panel so I can run my ground wire, which this is a 6 gauge. You can run 4 or 6, and then I'll tie it right into the ground bar. I'm going to run this right up through here, the hole I just drilled, and into that hole there. Screw that down. I'm all set on the ground, and then this ground wire will go out to my ground rod, and I'll hook it up out there. I've got a hollow cavity. I put a 2x10 on the outside and a 2x10 on the inside with a 2x6 plate, so there's a gap in between there. And that's how this conduit runs, and the ground wire is going to run the same, and then out to the ground rod. Alright, here we go. Ground wire is nice and snug. Beautiful. Now we'll hook up the ground wire first. This is from the main panel. And I'm going to leave extra wire just in case I ever move something around. Now we'll take the wire from the main panel, and I just ran a 10-2 wire, so I'm going to have 1 leg of 120 because it's only 10-2. If I had to run 10-3, then I could run 2 legs and get 220, but I don't need 220 out here. The white wire is the neutral wire. That goes in there on the neutral bar. And the black wire alright, good there. And I'll hook up the ground wire. Good. And then my 14-2 wire that's feeding the barn. Ground wire first. And I like to loop it, leave a little extra. And I'll tuck that in behind. Pulling the wire, make sure it's good and snug. And I'll take my white wire. I'm going to go up and then come back down. About a ½ inch. Good and snug. I'll put the breaker in. There's a little notch here that fits on this plastic bar here. And on the other end there's a contact, and that just slides over this bar right here. So you just slide this end in and push down, and then I'm going to screw this black wire right in there. And we'll be all set with this panel. There we go. It's in there. I'll take the black wire. Slide that in. Good and snug. Now I'm going to knock out the spot where that breaker is that I just put in, just to get it started. And now that I got it started, just going to flip it around, grab it with the pliers, work it back and forth. And there we go. Now we'll put the cover back on. Everything's good, everything's tight. Breaker's off. Good. Breaker's off. Beautiful. I've got the wire pulled from the outbuilding. This is 10-2 wire, so I'm just running 110 out there. And now we can go ahead and remove the main panel and connect our wire. I wear some good heavy rubber-soled boots and rubber gloves to do this job. First thing I did is I turned off the air conditioner, unplugged all major appliances and my computer, and now we'll shut off the main breaker. And now we can remove the panel. And as you can see, my panel is full, so I'm going to have to make room for a 30-amp breaker in there. I'm pushing against the panel while I take this last screw out so it doesn't fall. Even though this breaker's off, this wire's hot, and then you got your neutral there. You don't want to touch any of that. If you do, you're in big trouble. But we should be okay up here because I got the main breaker off. I'm going to combine two of these and make a space for the outbuilding on this top one here. And these are both 15 amp breakers, and I got a double 15, and I can combine these two. Got to bring the wire through the panel, and I popped out one of these plugs here. Just hit it with the screwdriver from the top and got that started. And just grab it with the pliers, wiggle it back and forth, pop that out. Now I'm going to put a clamp connector in with a 10 wire. You can only bring one wire through the panel in one spot, so that's why I'm not using one of the existing holes to come through with it. The rubber gloves I have are a little difficult in a tight space. The lugs are down below, as you know, so just to put this on, I'm going to get one off. Alright. And I just held the nut from below and pushed from the top over. I can run my wire down through here. Just going to snug this down so the wire doesn't move. Not too tight. And I'll put the staple in. There we go. Good. Now I've got a double breaker here, and I'm going to combine the septic pump and the septic pump into this one breaker. That'll open up this one space up top, and I can put my 30 amp breaker for the barn in there. And the second one out. And now we can replace it with this little guy here. Okay. Alright, good. And now we can pop this baby back in. Alright, you get the back on the bar first. Pop that in. And pop the front in. There we go. Now I need to strip these wires. I'll leave a ½ inch up here at the top. Cut that off. All right. And I run the ground wire first. And I gotta tuck it all in back behind here. There we go. And now the neutral wire. Alright. And now we just have our black wire. And again, if I ever want to move it, I'm going to come down to the last breaker here, loop it back up, and bring it in like that. And here's our 30 amp breaker. Tighten that rascal down. Good. And we can pop that in. There we go. Alright, we can throw the panel back on. And one thing you want to check is where these screws go in. Sometimes there can be a wire pushing right up against that, and these screws can cause a short. So you want to be aware of that everything's tucked in real nice. And those are the steps I took to wire a subpanel so I could have power in an outbuilding. If this video is a help to you, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And I look forward to helping you with other projects online. Minnie, what are you doing with my glove?